Well, thank you very much for being here. This is my second time in DevOps UK, and I'm still super excited and super nervous of being here. This time, we have a Tools in Action session, so it's really a very short one, so I really try to show you as much as possible. And I want to show you what you can do with this tool, because I think it's a very powerful and flexible tool. I actually was not going to talk about me, because we only have 30 minutes, and I have a lot of examples, a lot of code that I wanted to show first. But in a session today, the speaker actually said, you have to talk about yourself. And so I prepared these 3 slides, because those are the only slides I have. And, well, my name is Ixchel Ruiz, and I think this summarizes quite well what it's all about me. I'm from Mexico, so that's why you hear this funny accent. I live in Switzerland. I'm a Java champion. I am an Oracle Groundbreaker ambassador. I work for a company called Karakun. I like and support a lot hacker gardens around the world. And I do a lot of conferences and conferences around the world. And this one is one of my favorites, and that summarizes what an conference is for me, a place where you meet fellow speakers and they become your family. Oh, and that was the last slide. So let's go. Yeah, it's super fast. Let's go to see what is the tool I'm going to talk about. If you were in the session before this one with Josh Long, he actually showed 2 things that I'm going to show too. It's WireMock in the standalone version, and I'm also going to show a little bit of Rest Assured. So who has used WireMock before? Oh, OK. I hope I can teach you something new, or at least the example that I really like the best. So let's start with our slides. We can run WireMock in standalone like that. For these examples, what we are going to start seeing is WireMock 2 version 23.2. And if you run it with the help, of course, you are going to get all the different options that you can run with, for example, like that. And there they are. But a quick overview of those, you can specify on which port, you can pass a dynamic port. And the first functionality that I want to remark is record mappings and proxy all. Because WireMock, I don't know if you have used it before, can be used as a proxy for recording and replaying. So this is, for example, what we are going to see. And before I used to do this presentation in PowerPoint, but copying pasting bash commands from Keynote or PowerPoint, it's horrible. So let's start WireMock, proxy all, and I'm going to record the mappings. So now if I go into my browser to localhost 8080, I should be seeing WireMock, the site. And if I start navigating into it, like checking the configuration, checking now the running as a standalone, and later on, turn my Wi-Fi off, I should still, well, let me first show you what is happening. Here, you're going to see that I have two new directories, the directories files and mapping. And if I do 3 on those, you will see that I have a lot of things now. If I delete those files again, those directories, I'm completely deleting them again. I'm going to start again my WireMock in the proxy mode. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, go into configuration, go into the running and standalone. And if I, again, stop it, and I do again 3, let me show you what is happening. Oh. 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 And that's also the other reason why I don't type so frequently. Let me see, WireMock proxy all, yes. This is okay. It's not recording. I love when these things happen to me. Server error. Okay.
Because you turned off the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. Yes, totally. If the key cannot proxy back to the server, of course it's not going to work. So again, I'm going to do it again now that I deleted those directories, and now I should have the different files and the different mappings. So if I now query one of the mappings, for example, mappings, docs, stubbing. Here I have, like, it's going to be a request on this URL, the docs stubbing. I'm going to use a body file name, which is going to be under resources. I have already captured the different headers. So now if let me copy again, this one. If I copy now and modify on the files, and I change, let's see, instead of saying WireMock, I'm going to say okay. So I modified all the calls into the WireMock, and if I now turn off my Wi-Fi, and of course I don't have anything here, but if I go again into the stubbing, suddenly, did I modify the stubbing? And I need to run WireMock, obviously, without the proxy all and without recording the mappings, only to replay mode. It's going to start listening. So here you can see that I modified the we. So what I have is a really fast record and replay server for any REST call that I'm doing. This is the most basic functionality that you can see. If you don't have one of the resources of the request, your WireMock will tell you. This is the request that was executed. This is what you have, and if they are close enough or not so close enough. Okay, so record and replay is nice, but you can also create your own mappings, for example. I'm going to delete again well, actually it doesn't matter if I'm not going to record. No, I actually want to record the mappings. Wait a second. So I'm going to start again WireMock and again with record mappings, but in this case I'm not going to do the proxy all. Here it is, running. Let's go back to our presentation. I already explained a little bit that we will have the files and the mappings created when you are recording the proxy. This is how request actually looks like. And for example, if we want to start creating our own mappings, it's really simple. For example, right now I'm going to create one that is going to be listening into the path get this, and it's going to return a simple plain text into the body. So if I do that here, and then I do the request with curl, you will see what is happening. And actually, this is going to be even, this is going to work even in any browser, of course. I mean, that's not black magic. So let's go back to the next example. You can also use JSON for the mapping. So here what we are doing is in the body, we are going to put JSON, and it's very, very simple. Now I'm going to, again, execute this one. And if I call it again, we are going to get now JSON. And remember that I'm storing these mappings into my local directory. But it's not only that. If we want to use patterns in the URL, that's also possible. For example, in this case, we are going to create a get request with an URL pattern that is going to return a status 200 with a specific body. So, sorry. Let's create that. And let's query it. OK, it finds it. Perfect. What happens if I send something that is not inside the pattern I have defined? Well, in this case, it shouldn't. And it also should report you why was not matched. So again, if I ask for whatever, more whatever, it's still going to return me the right answer. Let's continue. I can use patterns in the body. For example, I'm going to create a post request, and it's only going to return me a status 200 if the body matches this specific pattern. So that's quite neat. So I don't have to create exhaustive examples of my REST endpoints. For example, if now I curl it, there it is. If I send something totally different, it's not going to be match. So it's going to tell me this is actually not match. And it will tell me which is the closest one. Sorry. Let's continue. Now I can also work with time. If we want to mock, like, for example, REST endpoint is, the network is slow, or we want to throttle a service, it's also possible. For example, this one, we are creating a get endpoint in the get delayed. Actually, we return at 200, and it's going to return it after 2,000 milliseconds. So now if I request this endpoint, it's going to take some time, and after 2,000 milliseconds, it's going to appear. Perfect. Now I want to simulate that we have a problem. That's also possible. I have an illegal one. And if I go to the server, well, you even not see it here. You will see it on the head. Oh, well, actually here. Yes. Cannot parse. Oh, well, there wasn't the domain. If I open it on Chrome, you will see a different thing. Yeah. The error incomplete shock encoding. So as you can see, we can play with time. We can play with different responses. And because WireMock was thought as a testing library, also as a stop or a mock tool, it will be important to know how many times we have invoked a specific endpoint. So if we ask for how many times have we invoke the delayed, obviously it's going to be 1. If I invoke it again, hopefully it's now 2. So what we have seen? We have seen that we can play with time. This was a fixed, the example that I show, it was with fixed delay. You have random delay, you can pass a formula to calculate the different delays. You can play with different types of encoding into the body. You can play into the URL, follow patterns, passing text, passing JSON, even binary encoding is allowed in WireMock. If you're using already WireMock, I totally recommend you to use this extension for Chrome. You can connect to different WireMock to different WireMock servers, and you can see the mappings. So for example, these are the mappings that we were defining in curl, and you can see here how they actually look like. If I were to go now to the files that we have here, cd mappings, oh, they didn't record them. Well, if you were to see them, if we can actually ask them to be recorded into different directories, because one of the properties, let me return my Wi-Fi on to go to the WireMock and docs here. Because if we pass a different kind of root directory, we're going to record all the mappings into a specific file. So as we can see, we can record and replay. We can record, store them in different directories. We can create them with curl and store them in different directories. We can play with time. We can play with matches or pattern matches in the URLs, in the bodies, in the body of the request and in the body of the response. So it's quite flexible. But we are Java developers. So curl probably is not our cup of coffee or tea. So right now I'm going to show you these examples with JUnit 5, WireMock and standalone, and rest assured. So these are kind of similar to what you saw with Josh. In this case, first disclosure, this is a Groovy console. This is Groovy. I'm using Graph for resolving the dependencies. I like to use Groovy for my examples because you can see the entire code here. This is all you need. You don't need any build file. I'm not using Gradle. I'm not using Maven, nothing. Everything is going to be grabbed right now and is going to be executed. I'm using a WireMock to mock the server, and then I'm going to use rest assured to mock a client. So in this particular example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize the port in this port, 190. What I'm going to create is a JSON string, and I'm going to create a REST endpoint called JSON pet, and it's going to respond 200 with that JSON, like cookie, age, toys, ball, and bear. I'm going to check that, of course, I have a 200 on this particular URL or path. I'm going to check that I do not have any XML path. And then I'm going to check that I do have 2 toys. So if I run now, I see that I had 3 tests run, 0 failures. And so we are going to change it, because if you haven't seen a test fail, you shouldn't trust it. So the other reason why we are using Groovy Console is because I really like the power asserts. The power asserts will show you how actually the expectation, how different was from the assertion. Power asserts were first introduced in Spock. Actually, the power asserts that you can see in Spock are really even better because they will tell you with some certainty the degree of confidence or how far away they were. So in this case, 3 obviously doesn't equal to 2, so we only have 2 toys, but if I were to add a third toy, like a toy, and I run it again, then it's okay, because now we have 3 toys. So pretty simple, pretty powerful. Now let's see another one. I still have time. Do I want to modify it? No. Okay, so this is very similar, but what I want to show you here is that we can change stops, because we can give uuid to any of the mappings that we are creating, and later on use that uuid to modify it. So I'm going to run my WireMock server in a specific port. I create a random uuid. This is also something interesting. I have in the directory resources a file. So I'm going to use that file for any of the resources that I later on use here. For example, here I'm saying use the file JSON and pet JSON whenever you are requested a get. Yes. A get from JSON pet, you're going to return the content of this JSON pet with a status code 200. After that, I modify this stop, I pass the uuid, and I now change, and the body is not going to be the JSON result, it's going to be a string. And then what I'm doing is doing a test, first checking that I have doggy, and let me show you what do we have there. No, it's not there. First, we have to, okay. Files, JSON. So this is it. This is what we are going to return. And as you can see in the name, I have doggy. Okay. So now if I execute the code, this particular code, I have a problem. I have one test. Resource mappings do not exist. Let me see what happened. Did I delete it? That resources mappings. Let me see what we are doing. Resources mapping is not finding my resources. Using file directory under resources. No, it's not finding it. It's not finding in a specific folder. Let me see what is happening. I'm running this. Sometimes it's because I'm running the Groovy console script from a different folder. So I'm going to double check that everything is there in the resources.
You can try to put the full path there in the code.
Yeah. Wait a second. Yes, because where I executed the Groovy console, it's going to be using it as the path, and here. So now it's finding it. So it's how I actually invoke the Groovy console. I invoked it from a different path. Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, we can modify it and stop, and then later on see that it's working. And in this case, if I modify this one, well, obviously, it's not going to work, and it's going to tell me why. It was suspecting Dewey, and it got Doogie. Okay. So let's continue. I have 6 more minutes. So let's do our best. OK, this is going to be also the problem. So I kill it. And Groovy console, example 03, and we continue. OK, now it's going to be relative the path and whatnot, and it's going to be there. And of course, unsupported operation. Now what? Oh, yes, sorry. I use different use list. I'm usually playing around with different versions of Groovy and Java. So if you are like me, I totally recommend you to use this particular tool, SDK Man, to control the different versions of your different tools. For example, I use it for Groovy, for Micronaut, for Gradle, for whatever. And one of the most interesting things is that you can use a specific version of Java, Groovy, or per shell, or actually define it globally. So it's quite handy. There are some problems with the different versions of Groovy and the Groovy console. The Groovy team is working on it. So, and I did all that because I needed, in my example, I'm using resources as a relative path. So in this case, what I'm going to try to show you really fast is that we can create also the request bodies with XML. And in this case, we're going to pass it with a specific body, and if it's going to match, and if not, we are going to fail. So as you can see, I'm doing the test the body with the XML results, and test the body with when the XML result doesn't match. And the last one, I think, we're going to be able to see. And this is one of my favorite ones. Because I'm here, remember that we were using delay response. So in this case, I'm also creating the delay response path. And I'm going to use rest assure. And rest assure also allows you to use response. And for example, rest assure has a response.time functionality. So it's going to wait. It's going to wait and actually compare how much time it actually took. If I say that it's less than 1,000 milliseconds, obviously it's going to fail. No, it's not failing. Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry for that. Of course, it was going to be successful. So I now expect this call to be successful or completely with 2,000 in a time less than 2,000 milliseconds, and in this case, it wasn't. It was in 2008, so this is false. So there is another. I'm going to probably just show you this one. But because I really want you to get the idea of what this is. You can also create complex scenarios or based on states. For example, the first time that you request an URL, you respond with something. The second time that you request the same URL and you pass in the header and a specific state, you can choose another response. And the third time and the fourth time, so what you have is the scenarios that are playing in different steps. And I think I don't have more time, but yeah. But I think WireMock is really important and is really flexible, and I think at least I piqued your interest into trying to know a little bit more about it. And this is my final slide. Please, if you have any feedback for me, I always enjoy talking to people, knowing how can I improve my sessions, knowing other interests or tools that you may find interesting or useful in your daily lives. And rate the session, please. Did I show something that you didn't know? Yes? Oh, thank you very much. You made my day. Okay, thank you.